Swiss rolls are one of my favorite things to make, especially the pumpkin roll. It's moist, delicious, has a nice spicy fall flavor, and it's just wonderful. Here are your ingredients, but don't worry, they'll be in link below with full nutrition information and more details, including pictures. For this recipe, you will need a bowl, a mixer, a lint-free towel that is clean. You don't want it being washed in the washer with all kinds of detergent, so I like to wash these by hand with dish detergent. Then you're going to need a spatula or a spoon. I like a spatula so you can use it to level it out. A nice sifter of any kind, a 9 by 13 cake pan or jelly roll pan, and a cooling rack. And then you just want to line this and grease it on the bottom with either wax paper or parchment paper to help you release it. The 9 by 13 is 23 by 33 centimeters. Now let's go preheat our oven to 350 or 180°C. You're going to start by beating 3 eggs. That's 150 grams after you crack them. And you want to get them till they're a little bit smooth. And once you get them to that point, you're going to add in your sugar, which is 3/4 of a cup or 150 grams. Turn up your speed on the mixer to about medium high and then just beat this for about 10 minutes or until you get a nice pale yellow and it will ribbon off nicely from your mixer, and you can draw an 8 and it will stay in the batter for a few seconds. I will show you what it looks like with a picture, and that way you'll really understand what I'm looking for. The eggs will be a pale yellow at this point, and you're going to need a cup of flour, 150 grams in a separate bowl. Add in 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which is around 1.25 grams, a teaspoon of baking powder, which is 4 grams, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 4 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, which is 1 gram, 1/2 teaspoon of allspice, 2 grams, 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, 0.5 grams, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, which is 0.5 grams. Now if you don't have all these spices, just find you some pumpkin pie spice and just use equal amounts. It'll be perfectly fine. To the egg mixture, we want to add in 1 cup of pureed pumpkin, that's 218 grams. And you want to beat this in until it is nicely incorporated. Once that happens, now you're just going to add in your dry ingredients that you mixed together earlier. And you're going to add it in a little bit at a time. I like to add it in about 1/6 at a time, that way it doesn't deflate the batter. But if you do deflate the batter somewhat, don't worry, you have that baking powder in there as an extra insurance, and that way it'll help rise your cake up and still be nice and fluffy and moist. You're going to just take your time and do this step a little bit at a time. It's better to add a little bit at a time than it is to add it all at once. Just remember that. If you did it correctly, it'll still be nice and fluffy and it'll look a lot like this. You're going to just adore this cake. It is not like the regular pumpkin rolls you get where they're really flat and kind of tough and chewy. This is more like a nice sponge cake, and it's just wonderfully soft, and it's incredibly moist if you don't overbake it. Now if you did not prepare your pan at this point, again, grease the bottom of the pan, not the sides, and then lay out a piece of wax paper or parchment paper in the bottom so you can release the pan. If you don't do this, it will stick to the pan. So make sure you have some kind of thing on the bottom. I actually prefer parchment paper. It doesn't stick as much as wax paper, even though wax paper is cheaper and it is easily accessible. So just use what you can afford. Also, a lot of recipes tell you to use a specialized pan, which is called a jelly roll pan. However, I found a regular 9 by 13 by 2 inch cake pan works wonderfully for this. And the one thing I really appreciate about it is the fact that you don't accidentally stick your thumb into the cake when you're getting it out of the pan. So there's a bonus there, and you don't have to spend extra money on a specialized pan you only use once or twice a year, maybe 3 times. You're going to scrape the batter out carefully to try not to deflate too much of the batter, and then just spend some time evening it out and pushing it into the corners. Try to get it as evenly as possible as you can, because if you don't, I'm going to show you later what happens. I kind of got lazy and I didn't spread it out very evenly, and it will cause a crack. You want to bake this 12 to 15 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out clean, and you'll actually hear it kind of sizzle when it comes out of the oven. The next thing we're going to do is lay out that towel, and we're going to put about a quarter cup of powdered sugar, 31 grams, sprinkled all evenly over the cake. You try to avoid the first inch or so, but if you can't, it's okay. Now, if you are new to this, I recommend that you really coat this towel well. That way you will not have it stick to the towel, and you'll have less likely cracked cake at the end. Again, just spread this out all the way through until you get to the very end of the towel, and just use as much powdered sugar as you like. And also, I found if you want to put some cinnamon on top or some of the spices, it's actually very lovely. The next part, you have to be a little gentle because you're going to be working with a hot cake pan. You want to loosen the sides of the cake using a spatula that is approved for your pan. If you have a non-stick pan, you want to make sure you use a silicone spatula because you don't want to scrape off your coating. I'm using an aluminum pan, so I can use metal, and that's why I like to use aluminum or stainless steel. And just take some time and loosen up the cake. And I like to check the bottom to make sure it's not sticking. That way, if anything was stuck, we could go and fix it. You're going to take it over to the towel and you're going to flip it upside down. Try to do it as best you can close to the edge. And I screwed up. And if you screw up like this, please, whatever you do, don't readjust it. I did that, and when I readjusted it, I caused it to stick to the towel and I caused a big crack. Peel off the backing, and you're going to peel it off slowly to avoid it from sticking and pulling off too much of the batter. It shouldn't pull anything off at all if you used parchment over wax paper. And now we're just going to roll it up slowly and not too firmly because you just want to have a nice gentle roll to this cake. Take your time here. Once you get it rolled up into the towel like this, you are going to let it cool completely. You're working with a warm cake, so if it hurts your hands, you can take a break, but not too long because rolling it up warm is what helps keep that really nicely rolled. And I like to put it on a cooling rack because I found that if you don't put it on a cooling rack, it will sweat on the bottom of the cake and it will be really nasty. So just put it on a cooling rack to let it cool. Let it cool completely. It takes about an hour, hour and a half. Walk away. While that's going on, you want to make some cream cheese frosting. I like to use a half a package of softened cream cheese, 113 grams, and a half a stick of butter, which is a quarter cup or about 56 grams. And you want those softened at room temperature until you can press on them, but they're not oily. Then you're going to add in a half a cup of powdered sugar, which is about 62.5 grams, and a pinch of salt, or about 1 gram if you're not using salted butter. That helps cut the sweetness and bring out the flavor. And if you need more help on this, I have a link below that will give you more details on how to make cream cheese frosting. And if you noticed, I went ahead and made the whole package, and I'm using the other half of this recipe for another project. So you can make a bunch of this all at once and have it stored, or you can make several jelly rolls, and that way you'll have enough, but you only need half of the portion I'm making here in the video. The next thing you'll want to do is lay out a piece of saran wrap, cling film, whatever you want to call it, and you want it slightly larger than what the jelly roll is going to be. And you're going to take the jelly roll off of the cooling rack once it's completely cooled, and you're going to gently unroll it from the towel. Now, if you did this right, you won't have any cracks. If you had any mistakes like I did, you may have a crack, but I will show you how to fix that, so don't worry. So let's just try to unroll it very gently to try to minimize cracks. Oh, look, I'm doing really, really well, and I'm super excited, and there's the crack starting. I just was really devastated, but that's okay. That's what happens when you try to move a cake when it's already been placed down. Don't do that. Now we're going to put in half of the frosting that I made, which would be the entire amount if you made the small batch that I gave you the instructions for. And you're going to spread it out and try to spread it up into the little rolled area that wants to stay, but hold the rolled area gently, because if you hold it too tightly, you're going to cause it to crack even further, which is what I did. It was just not a good day for making a jelly roll for me, apparently. And I was going to redo this and show you the perfect jelly roll like a lot of people would do on baking channels, but I wanted to show you how to fix a crack if you do get one and why you shouldn't even worry about it if it happens. Take some time and spread this out evenly onto the jelly roll. Try to make it as best as you can all the way to the edges, but leave a little bit at the room on the bottom, because if you don't, it's just going to smush all out on the bottom. It'll look a lot like this. Now just gently start rolling the cake up and try not to pull the towel away from you. Again, if you wouldn't have moved the cake from the towel and you would have had a lot of powdered sugar on it, you wouldn't be having the problems I'm having. Learn from my mistake, don't readjust the cake. And as you can see, there is a crack starting, and I'm a little sad, but it still tastes beautifully, so don't worry about it. Just try to fix it the best you can and try to push the crack together. Let the cream cheese help you. And when you put it onto the piece of saran wrap, you can squeeze it together a little bit tighter, and that will help it adhere. You're going to chill this in the refrigerator for at least an hour. I like to chill it overnight. And then you want to bring it out and cut it while it's still slightly chilled, about 20 minutes beforehand. This is best served chilled, but a lot of people do like it room temperature. That's entirely up to you. You do have to keep this refrigerated when you're not using it, because it does have the cream cheese in it and you don't want to make yourself sick. It's the following day and I'm going to unwrap this cake and I'm going to show you how to deal with this crack that we ended up with. Ideally, you wouldn't have a crack, you would have taken your time, you wouldn't have messed up, but hey, things happen in the kitchen. Go with it. Don't throw it out. It tastes wonderful. It smells delicious. No one really cares except for the snobby people. And if those snobby people care, you really don't want them in your life anyway. Don't share the cake with them. Eat it all by yourself. Again, here's the little crack. Oh man, I feel so ashamed. What should I do? I don't know. You want to cut off the ends if you're serving this to someone so it looks prettier, and people call those the cook's treats. I actually feed them to the dogs because they don't have too much cream cheese in them and they love it, and that's why they're hovering. And once you do that, it will look nice and you'll have a pretty little swirl, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. See how the ends don't have all the cream cheese in it? But if you turn it, you have this pretty little swirl and it's got a nice amount of cream cheese. You can use double the amount if you like. Now let's try to hide this crack. Just get some more powdered sugar and dust over the top of it, and it'll just kind of disguise it for you. And again, no one really cares if there's a crack if it tastes amazing. And if they do care, eat their piece and tell them that's what you get for judging me and my delicious cake. I'm going to eat it in front of you and you're going to have to watch. Next time they will never complain about the cracks in your cake again. Trust me on that. I hope this helps you learn how to make a pumpkin roll and how to deal with mishaps in the kitchen. As usual, I always promise to show you the good and the bad, and it's not a big deal if the bad happens. Focus on flavor, texture, taste, and then worry about presentation. Again, visit jacksonsjob.com for more recipes and find tips and tricks on how to deal with problems in the kitchen. As always, happy baking.